Welcome to Hope Now, not only weekends, a Hope Church Memphis podcast. Real hope lived out right now.
Well, the mission of Hope Church is to engage our unchurched neighbors of every age and every ethnicity to experience Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be a church that's Jesus-centered and unchurched-friendly. Why is that, and what does that mean? Obviously, we take our cue from Jesus. Mm-hmm. Luke 19:10 says, I came to seek and to save those who are lost, who are drifting, who have no destination. And we want to be a church like that. So let's talk a little bit about how we try to do that and still be Jesus-centered. One of the things that we have to acknowledge is this term unchurched. It's a new term. It's been around a while. Mm-hmm. But we do have to acknowledge that we're talking about people who don't have a significant spiritual relationship with a congregation. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that that's the be-all, the end-all, but it's very critical if you're going to be following Jesus mm-hmm. and to be in community. Mm-hmm. So unchurched can mean anywhere from people who never have gone to church. It can mean anything from people, particularly in the South, for example, who go to church as a cultural thing. It's really not first and foremost in their lives. The church means that I used to go to church, but now I don't for some reason. It could be hypocrisy. It could be because I got busy with life, fell out with the faith. And then hurt by church are those who had negative experiences with so-called God's people. So let's talk a little bit about where that may have fit you. I wasn't raised in church, and you heard my story. But why don't we begin with you, Cheney? Were you raised in church, more cultural, or de-churched and now re-churched? I mean, where do you fall on that continuum?
I was raised in church. I was born into a family that practiced Catholicism. And I, looking back, realized now that I was so lucky to be able to go to church with not only my immediate family, but my whole extended family. We went to church every Sunday, and it was just really sweet to get to practice that together. So the routine of going to church was not new to me. But when I think about my faith and really making it my own, that did not come until probably college.
Mm-hmm. Vincent?
I remember being a little kid, and my mom may have taken me once or twice here or there. She married my father, who was not saved, and there was no relationship with the Lord there. He was just a bartender, street guy, ex-military, hard-nosed. I love him to this day. He is not the same person. The Lord changed him, but he was a serious drunkard, and that meant he was not alcoholic, but he could get drunk real good. Mm-hmm. And he used to take me to bars in Houston, Texas. And I would sit there and play these little Pac-Man machines and Donkey Kong as he got over there and had a good time and got drunk. They let me as a little kid go into these bars. Yeah. But he had a transformation with the Lord, and something happened. And I got to see it be progressive because he was still this guy who was angry, and I experienced that anger. But he started taking us to church. And we started going to a place called Tabernacle in Houston, Texas. And then we started going to a place called Wheeler Avenue. And that was a pivotal point for him, sitting under teaching by a guy named Bill Lawson, who's gone to be with the Lord. And I remember as a little kid, it was my first time taking communion, and it was real wine. And I think my dad liked it. But I said, this burned my stomach. He says, wine, be quiet. So that was kind of my first experience and exposure.
Yeah. Is that Joy Tabernacle? Joy Tabernacle or just Tabernacle?
Oh, man, I don't remember. It was so long ago.
It wasn't Michael P. Williams?
Maybe. The guy's deceased now. Who was the pastor?
Yeah, no, I was just curious. What about you, Chad? Unchurched, de-churched, heard about church?
All of the above.
All of the above, yeah.
So I have pictures. I think I might have been 4. Living in the South, church was just that routine that what people did. And so my mom didn't go to church, but she dressed me up, suit and tie, and gave me to an elderly woman across the hallway in our apartment complex. And so I remember I was cute too, man. I was sitting up there prim and proper, ready. I don't remember any of this. I said, Mom, that wouldn't fly today. Someone kidnapped me. But I remember having that picture. So that was my first experience of church. But our family didn't grow up in church. We did go to church for a little bit when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. And we had some pretty traumatic moments in our family in that moment in time. And so I heard for the first time John 3:16 there. And so that always stuck with me. But from church harm I think they were trying to care for us as well as they could, but my family just fell apart after that. And so we quit going to church from there. So my first experience of really the reality of Christ was when I was 14 at a Pentecostal church. And then, but even then, I had never experienced anything that I had experienced here at Hope. When I first came to Hope in college, I realized that my entire family, regardless if they agree with me or not with faith, would be welcomed here. That's when I knew something was different. And that was my first experience of that kind of mentality.
Well, you heard me say I had a grandmother who had a cafe on my daddy's side, a grandmother on my mama's side, my favorite great aunt. So I matriculated between bars. That was it. We moved to a new neighborhood, and one evening, my stepfather got a knock on the door, and some people came and said, "Can we have mission?" They called it mission on Monday night in your house. So he set us down that Sunday and said, some people are going to come and have church, he called it, in our house on Monday night. He knew we weren't used to that, so he said, now you better not go to sleep. And if you go to sleep, I'm going to be on you like white on rice. I remember him saying that. And these people came in, and they had a Bible, which I'd never seen. They had a hymn book, which I'd never seen. They had a little a white book, which was a mission book, where Bible study lessons were in. And they started singing and praying. All of that was foreign to me. And I remember that the singing, Cheney, was so boring. I mean, I'm used to cafe music. I remember this song is "Throw Out the Lifeline," just that. Throw out the lifeline, someone drifting away, and it was just so slow and boring. and they left. But at the door, one of the gentlemen, Mr. Johnson, our neighbor, said, "Can we come back next Monday?" And he said yes. Oh, we had to endure that again.
Start singing again.
And then they came back a third time. Then they invited us to the church. Raw Terrace Missionary Baptist Church. Church started at 7 a.m. in the morning. And Sunday school was after 7 a.m. Bars didn't open till 12. 7 a.m. And so we went there. We were late. Wooden floors. You can hear us walking down. And of course, when new people come to church, where do they want you to sit? As close as you can to the front, and we did. And after church was over, I had never seen a group of people, probably 150, 200 people there, that were enjoying themselves without alcohol. That made an indelible impression on me. I'd never seen it. And I was fascinated with it. One lady came up. Her name was Miss Verna Hubbard. And she said, "Young man, you must love preaching. You never took your eye off the preacher." She didn't know, that's the first time I ever been in. I had never seen anything like that, let alone. So I was just fascinated at just the whole surrounding.
Yeah, I bet.
We went on and started coming to church, and then my father became a deacon, and he saw some hypocrisy, and we quit going to church. Just as quickly we started going is as quickly we stopped going, cold turkey. And so for a couple of years, we were then de-churched. until something happened that got us back in church. And so what we try to do at Hope is be a place, I love what you just said, that I realize no matter where my family is on the spectrum, they will be welcome here. They are not going to be immediately judged by what they wear or so forth and so on. So how do we demonstrate that we are Jesus-centered but unchurch-friendly? You worked in various ministries in the church. So if a child comes and they may not be familiar with the surrounding, how did you and the children's staff work to let them know they were welcome and wanted?
I think hospitality is a huge thing. I can think of so many things that, from very, very basic to very, very in deep theological thoughts. But even the way that our staff dresses on a Sunday, you don't have to come prim and proper in your smocked dress. We have plenty of that, and that's great. But we also have lots of blue jeans and hats and all of the things, and it's truly a welcome as you are atmosphere across the board. And I think that you can see that, especially in our kids ministry through our volunteers, how they care for these kids. It does not matter if the child being dropped off has not had a shower in 2 weeks. It does not matter if they are dropped off in a smocked dress. They're so cute, but they are loved regardless because of their intrinsic value. And I think that just the hospitality that our kids ministry team gets to give to these families is huge. But then also, I mean, an adult is going to experience hospitality like that in the lobby too, and in the parking lot across the board. So I feel like Hope has broken down so many barriers from the moment that you walk or drive into the parking lot of, where do I park? This parking lot's huge. There's 2 levels. There's used to be a tram. Like, what do I do? So starting from the moment you pull in, just breaking down those barriers of things that could cause some anxiety of like, well, what if I go, like, where am I going to park? And then what door do I enter? And then where do I sit? Like, there are people every 10 steps helping you get here. And it's just so welcoming, because it doesn't matter what you look like or what you're carrying or anything. It just matters that you're here and that you're loved by the Lord, and so you're loved by Hope, and all of our people love you too.
You know, working in kids ministry for several years too, I know we try to be timely in this role, but we also have a lot of stuff on our plate. And so I remember parents coming in like 15, 20 minutes late. Some parents like 30 minutes late. And you could tell the kids were just frazzled. They were frazzled. We don't know what happened. And the phrase that we would always say is, we're just glad that you're here. Like, and if we could, we're like, we got the kids. Go get you a cup of coffee. Take a deep breath, and then go get you some Jesus if that's what you're here for, you know. And
we don't even start. I mean, I intentionally did not start a large group lesson where it would make somebody feel left out or late if they missed it. I would delay that, knowing that some people are trying their best to get here, and it's just really hard to get here sometimes on time. So if my kids aren't going to miss out on 15 minutes because I can pack it with fellowship time or maybe a small group activity that they could step into if they're late, but then they won't be walking into large group embarrassed because we're in the middle of a video or a lesson or a game, and now they're standing in the back and they don't know what to do. So it's just a lot of intentionality that goes into it.
That's a good word. You worked in student ministry, middle school for a long time. How did HSM, Hope Student Ministry, intentionally help those students in middle school, particularly going through a whole lot, feel welcome and wanted?
Yeah, for us, being a safe place for people who haven't been coming to church or visiting church for the first time in student ministry, what we tried to do, hospitality would be an aspect of it, but it was relationship. We would show that we cared for you as much outside of these walls as we did inside the walls. So when students would come in, there would be someone at the door, there'd be someone at the top of the steps, there'd be, like, everybody's greeting them, walking them to the right direction or the next direction. And when they went in the fellowship time, we started fellowship time mainly for that same reason, because people would be, so we would have an area in the corner where kids can play cards or video games. We'd have another area where kids can just sit down and talk. And so whatever their affinity was in their relationship with their friends, they would gravitate towards it. And we'd put a leader or two in that area to be relational. Hey, tell me your name. What do you like? What do you not like? And so we wanted them to see that we valued them, not because they were a bottom in the seat, but because they were a life that we felt like had value when they walked through the doors. And then when we found out if they had activities, we would do school pickups, we would go to their sporting events or extracurricular events, so that they saw, hey, you're not only coming to church, we want to be able to come into your life if you allow us. And so it was relationship. So that broke down the paradigm of, you just want me to come to church for X, Y, and Z. We said, no, we want you to come to church because we want to be a part of your life.
Yeah.
And that was one way that it changed the narrative of how people saw student ministry, but particularly church and student ministry.
You brought a culture with you in family ministry now, but you brought a culture of being a church planter, so you were accustomed to welcoming people who were new to the church, new to faith, exploring, seeking, and so forth. How has that translated to your ministry here?
That's one thing that you said when I first came that was a part of my DNA, was wanting people when they come in to experience the familiar so they can be introduced to the unfamiliar, which may be Jesus. So as a church planter, I always wanted a church where there could be somebody there in a suit, which we had, or somebody sitting there with a hat on, which we had, or someone who raised their hands, who was familiar with some kind of Southern church paradigm, another person who just sat there unmoved physically but locked in. And I think at Hope, we've created an environment where people can come into something that may be familiar, i.e. aesthetically. You come in and you see what may be considered as stadium seating or a theater type seating. My mother and grandmother, they didn't grow up with that. There would not be a seat with a cup holder in it. The paradigm that my father got saved in and introduced me to, you did not bring any type of liquid into the sanctuary. But here, it's okay.
Not even gum.
None of it. You stop. I would be pinched. But we've tried to create an environment where there's something that is more important, which is your soul, not these little behaviors and external things.
Pastor, you shared something in Marriage and Family that I think is so simple, but we overlook too much in our marriages, that phrase that you want people to hear when they think about it.
So being over family ministry, and there's several ministries under family ministry, and I said this to the staff, and I'm going to keep saying this, I want this to be a place where families can learn and laugh together.
Yeah.
We ought to be learning who Jesus is and how to follow him, but also having some fun while we do it.
Yeah.
Why can't we enjoy being a follower of Jesus?
I think another way that we fulfill that mission, being sensitive to those who are unchurched, is the language that we use. I mean, some churches have said putting the cookies on the lower shelf. So it's tempting when you have a preacher, a teacher, seminary, and you in your last year, and to learn things and just to things that you're learning, but you got to think a little bit deeper on how can I simplify this. As opposed, I would love to talk about post-salvation epistemological rehabilitation, but I can't talk about that, right? Because
say it 10 times fast.
I can't talk about that. So I talk about spiritual growth or spiritual journey or growing, and that I think is manifested on our preaching team as well, where you have to think a little bit deeper in order to reach the person at that spiritual level, because we got people at all different kind of spiritual levels. But I think when you bend over backwards, you're trying to say to those who are unchurched, de-churched, or hurt by church, we're thinking about you, without saying you're thinking about you, just using common language. How do you do that in your preaching and teaching?
For me, it's important not to just think about it, but to be in relationship with people who caused me to think about it. So I could be as creative as I assume I am, but I have to be in relationship with people that are saying things or causing me to study that or to ask questions. So that allows me to think, okay, is this sermon something that every age group will understand that hears it? Is this sermon something that every ethnic group that we have here will understand it? Is this sermon something that I've tried as best as possible not to have gender biases in? Another thing that I do that's practical for me, I send sermon points to my daughter who's 19. I send it to several millennials on staff. I send it to people who are different ethnicities because I want their feedback. Yeah. And I said, Tim, what you hear when you see this wording, when you hear it, I said, do I need to rephrase this? I need to change this title. Give me some feedback so when I say this, it's understood well.
You got a lot more spiritual self-esteem than I do. I would not do that.
I was about to say, you opened up a can of worms in that one.
I love that.
It's a great dialogue. When looking at trying to teach and preach to individuals who did not grow up in the church, one, it's nice because I get to think, if someone told me this when I wasn't in church, like, am I going to understand it? So I start with that. But secondarily, Einstein said that if you can't teach what you think to a 7-year-old, like, you don't know it well enough. And so for me, having gone through student ministry and kids ministry, and I've tested some of the topics that we've had and going, okay, how would I explain it to my 7-year-old child? And then sometimes I've actually tried to explain it. If they look at me cross-eyed and go, I have no clue what you're talking about, maybe I need to go back to the drawing board. Right. But it's not only growth for me to understand it, but it's growth for me to present it in a way that I know the broader audience can understand it too. So sometimes, at least where I grew up in the South, the theological word showed that you had higher prestige in your faith or whatnot. Yeah. And that was, it turned me off. I didn't want anything to do with that. And so for me, if someone can hear it clearly in their own language and their own understanding, and the bulb goes off by God's grace, then we've accomplished our goal.
Join us next week for a new episode on this topic. Thanks for listening to Hope Now, because hope isn't just for weekends, it's for life right now. Worship with us on the weekends and connect with us online at Hope for Memphis or hopechurchmemphis.com.